All right, here via Skype to discuss this week's media scoops is Katie Halper.
She is, of course, the host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of Useful Idiots, a Rolling Stone podcast, and great friend of the show. And I got to actually see you this week in Cambridge to talk about class warfare, which is maybe not something I really expected to happen. It was awesome.
At Harvard. Not just in Cambridge, but at actual Harvard, yeah.
Yeah. How did it go?
I mean, it was incredible, honestly.
It was really good,
actually, this sounds super cheesy, but the whole event was actually incredibly uplifting. You had they filled the auditorium, and then they had an overflow room that they filled, and then a second overflow room that they filled, and then they had to turn people away, all for this conversation with Katie and me and Megan Day and Nomiki Konst, Michael Brooks.
Everyone's been on the show.
Brother Cornel West. I mean, great leftist thinkers. It was a very, very cool event. So it was fun to be on stage with Katie.
Yeah, it was really fun.
All right, Katie, in the meantime, this is something I actually talked about this Bernie Bros piece that came out in the New York Times.
OMG.
I thought it was hilarious. So, I mean, I think I gave my take. My take was that really what it is that these are whiny, Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, Cory Booker, loving journalists who are getting hate on Twitter, and they're turning their bias and then the feedback on that bias just into smearing of another candidate, which is something that we see from them time and time again. I mean, I'm sure you have a great take on this.
Yeah, well, I want to actually thank the New York Times for doing this the way that they did, because they usually hide their bias a little bit more. But they really outed themselves because they grounded their piece, which is on the alleged kind of Bernie Broery that exists among Sanders supporters, according to the New York Times and according to this narrative, and does not exist among supporters of other candidates, which is just an absurd thing to say. The point is nobody talks about the abuse that's lobbed at Sanders and at his supporters, and we can go through those on another occasion. They're just too many to go through, honestly. But what was amazing about this is that they cited one of the people that they quoted, one of the victims of the alleged Bernie Bro attacks, is this woman, Candace Easton. And Candace Easton, I mean, you don't really have to look that hard to find the really reprehensible things that she tweets about. First of all, is it okay if I curated some examples that I really like?
Absolutely.
Hit us.
Okay, great. So this is an alleged victim of Bernie Bros, right? This is someone who said, for instance, maybe one day you'll get Bernie's D-I-C-K out of your eye and learn that losses like this are normal for 8 years of first black president. She also tweets something like, because she's, a progressive feminist, right? So she tweeted, single payer is never going to happen, like 3 times with the clapping hand. This is like an insight into the abuse that she lobs at people, which she does. One of my favorites is that where she says, I don't have to listen to you just because you're a person of color. Right. And this is what I love about this is exactly the type of person who will constantly say, listen to black women.
Yes.
And then when someone's like, why are you talking about people of color this way? She's like, I don't have to listen to you just because you're a person of color. She also tweeted, this is so true, never thought about it before, about a tweet that said, an observation of irony, the hatred, the bullying, and the harassment of the right directs to Hillary. The right directs to Hillary parallels the condemnation of Jesus.
Oh my
God. Maybe the fact that this woman sees the alleged persecution of Hillary Clinton as paralleling the persecution of Jesus, Christ, shows you that her understanding of victimhood and morality is a little off. She also would, this guy, Jeff, who's great, on Twitter, she would tweet about him and say that he looks like he bragged about doing a certain type of sex on a passed out girlfriend, called him rapey. She actually tweeted someone who was raped. She tweeted about it and said, can't help noticing that he's a Bernie bro. And then the woman who tweeted about her own rape said, stop weaponizing my rape for political purposes. I mean,
so
and she was
like,
I'm not just
human scum here.
Right.
Basically.
Well, I mean, point being, everybody has problematic followers, and nobody's demanding that Elizabeth Warren apologize for this person.
Yeah.
Right.
I personally enjoyed that one of the people they quoted was this woman, Maya Contreras, who'd accused me of being a closet Nazi propagandist because I'd used the term stabbed in the back. And then when there was like a backlash to that, because when you casually like throw out Nazism, there's usually a backlash. She then played the victim. I just got swarmed by Sanders supporters. So so anyway, that's the type level of analysis
that we're
talking about here.
Right.
But there was
of course. Oh yeah. No. Well, the reason that's important to talk about is because this is just weaponized as a narrative, and if people cared about harassment, then they would condemn it no matter who it's lobbed against. So people like Brianna Joy Gray, Nina Turner, who get called terrible racist names, but nobody talks about it. And the difference is that their side, the Clintonite side, they are elevated, these abusers, by the New York Times. You have Horse Whisperer elevated by Brian Williams on MSNBC. You have Hillary Clinton writing them letters. So there's no parallel like that with Sanders. He's the only one who's condemned online abusive behavior, and he has no associations with them, whereas the other side does. Anyway.
Right.
So also an interesting piece, Tiger, why don't you set this up?
Well, so this is Rahm. This is fascinating. So Rahm Emanuel, of course, he goes to the Atlantic, one of the birthplaces of neoliberalism. And it turns out that the African-American staffers there wanted to get him, they basically got him fired, but they covered it up in the magazine. And this, of course, I wanted to bring this up because Rahm Emanuel, I think this shows you the changing dynamics, and I'm sure you both will love this, of the left, where they make it so that these terrible, like, neo-lib centrist actors, it's like, no, you're not welcome here anymore.
We don't want you anymore.
Right.
Thank you.
What did you think of this, Katie?
Well, it's great because it's the cover-up is such a meta parallel, of course, because he covered up the police murder of Laquan McDonald. So in a way, it's very appropriate. But yeah, I don't know what this guy is doing there in the first place. Again, it kind of makes sense, and it's kind of like the New York Times couldn't even find a person who wasn't an online abuser to claim to be an abuse victim. Like the Atlantic doesn't even try. They just hire this guy who has a terrible record of being very anti-progressive, right? He's a total neo-lib. He writes op-eds about how Medicare for all will never happen, how it's a pipe dream. And of course, if that's true, why do you need to tell us that? Isn't it just going to combust on its own? And was a very corrupt Chicago mayor, and of course really was not. This is kind of a basic thing that you, as a progressive, you don't like it when cops shoot and kill unarmed black young men. You don't like when they shoot and kill anyone, but that's a particularly bad problem, systemic problem. So I don't know why he was here in the first place, and I think it's great that he's gone. I just wish he'd be gone, living underground more than just no longer employed at the Atlantic.
Don't worry, he'll still be on ABC News.
Oh yeah, they'll call him up to shill for pro health insurance industry talking points whenever necessary.
And that's another thing, right? Because he's on the board. He has affiliations with these companies, so it's a major conflict of interest that he's writing about Medicare for all. But again, why should he be different from any other person who's paid to be a shill?
Yeah, as if we need more of those.
Right.
I think we've got plenty of them in the roster.
All right, Katie.
Katie, it was great to see you this week, and thank you for doing the segment as always.
Thanks. Yep, see you soon. Bye.
We'll have more for you after this.